Welcome back to Out of the Rough. My name's Fred Arnold, and I'm here with Scott Jette. Scott is with Credo Consulting. Now, Scott has a interesting background and interesting history. Scott was a U.S. Marine Corps sniper.
That's right.
Yep. And so you served our country.
I did.
And then you worked for 10 years in a for-profit company and then a nonprofit also.
Correct.
So you have three different perspectives on business. But when it came to your perspectives on business, you went back to your roots, which is discipline and service to your country.
Pretty much, yeah.
So we're going to talk about what that means and how you can help businesses get out of the rough and into success. Question, what's the number one mistake companies make when it comes to promoting people, when it comes to moving people on to that next position, putting people in the right seats?
Yeah, well, the number one mistake they make is they promote their best people, which sounds like that would be the right thing to do. You take your person that's the best at what they do and put them in charge. But it betrays the reality that they don't understand that next level is an entirely different job and may require an entirely different skill set. You look at professional athletes, how many Michael Jordans go on to become great coaches? How many coaches have a background as being a star player? Your star player may not be your star leader because your star player and your star leader have two entirely different job descriptions. It requires a different makeup, different training, different attitude, different perspective. And so if you just take the people who are your best technicians, who are technically good at your job, and decide they should now be in charge, without actually showing some ability or willingness to change and become a different person, they're going to keep falling back on the skills that made them successful and not learning the next level, which is actually to become a leader, which is an entirely different thing.
Yeah, leadership, management,
Exactly.
because they're used to doing that task and they do it great.
Yeah.
That's what makes them their number one person.
Exactly.
Promoting your number one salesperson or your number one tactician.
Right, your number one salesperson isn't always your best regional manager.
Right.
Maybe it's one that'll be a salesperson. No, he can be. I'm not saying he can't be. But I'm saying if you're promoting him simply because he's a great salesman, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
He has to be a great leader.
Yeah, right. Now, you guys do actually a test when you go into a company. You actually do an interview of the different personnel to find out whether they're the right personality traits for that job?
Yeah, we do a lot of profiling. We like DISC. We do a lot of DISC profiling.
So what's DISC profiling?
Well, DISC profiling is the idea there are 4 personality types, and each one of us is a combination of all 4. But we are dominant in 1 or 2. And the traits in which we are dominant are the traits that our mind prefers to function in. So that's the environment we're going to be most comfortable in. And each of those 4 personality types has 4 different traits, and so you want to identify sort of how people are wired to see what they're best able to do. Now, any of the 4 can lead. It's not like one of the type is your most apt to lead. But they're going to all lead differently. And so you want to look at the type of leader you need for the situation to see if you're in fact choosing the right person.
Yeah, right. You want a cheerleader? Do you want someone that's a good manager? Do you want somebody that's good at analyzing the situation? Do you want someone that's there's so many different and they're all good personality traits, and they're all different.
They're all excellent. There's no bad.
Yes. Sole proprietors. They're thinking to build their organization. What do they need to know to lead? Because usually the sole proprietor was great at what they did, number one salesperson, or number one in their field. They felt like they weren't getting paid right or want to do it differently or do it better. So they started their own company. What do they need to learn to lead?
Well, it's kind of the same situation the companies make. Whereas the companies choose their best people and promote them for those reasons, the sole proprietor is thinking, I'm really good at what I do, therefore I should be able to run a company. And running a company is, again, an entirely different job than just simply doing the task. Now, if you want to just simply create a job for yourself, which many do, they're great electricians or plumbers or salespeople or insurance salesmen, and they simply do that for a living for the rest of their life, that's going to work for you, you're fine. But if you actually want to build a company, if you want to expand beyond the ability of your own hands, if you want to bring on talent that you yourself don't possess, if you want to explore the capabilities of your company, you're going to have to transition out of that technical task that got you there into someone that can actually have a broader scope and an entirely different skill set. And so if they're thinking to themselves, well, I run my own company and it's really just me or me and my wife, and so I don't know why I have to learn this stuff. Well, it depends on where you want to stay. If you want to stay where you are, maybe you don't. But if you want to make that next step, you're going to have to learn to do a job different than the one that got you in there in the first place.
Right, or hire someone that can do that.
Augment your weaknesses, absolutely.
Yeah, I think in our company, I'm pretty good at the consulting side of it, and so I stayed there and hired someone to help run the company.
Oh, that's an outstanding strategy. Yeah, augmenting your weaknesses. I do it all the time. We've got areas in my company I wouldn't want to be near. Yeah. And so I've hired people that are really good at those, and I empower them to do the job.
Paperwork is not my favorite thing.
Well, then let's keep you away from it. That's a good thing.
What are the common misconceptions of leadership?
Well, the common misconceptions are that leadership is another task that can be learned, as opposed to an identity that must be assumed. A good example would be if I were to learn to play some notes on a piano and practice a song and get really good at it. I could play that song and maybe even convince you that I can be a musician. But learning to play one song or a few notes doesn't make you a musician. You haven't actually taken on that identity. If you read some books and learn some principles and learn some ideas about leadership, that's a good thing. You should not do that. But that's not enough to make you a leader. You have to actually change who you are. You have to actually change the traits. And this is, you talked in the beginning about my background being military, for-profit, and non-profit. And the differences I saw in the way people led in those three areas was it was only the military that required you to change your identity. Everybody else simply had you reading books and going to seminars and learning all these different ideas of the law of the lid, or identify your influencers, or all these different tools you can use to lead. But tools don't make you a carpenter. You have to actually become that person. And the military didn't spend so much time on the tools. They spent time on the person. We want you to actually morph into someone else. We want you to have integrity. We want you to be dependable. We want you to have knowledge, a sense of justice. The qualities you'd look for in someone that you'd want to follow. Because leading isn't like playing a piano. People are going to have to follow you, and they won't follow you if you're not the kind of person they can follow. So you have to become that person.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to touch upon some of these traits. You talk about 14 traits.
Yeah, 14 traits.
That are really important in leadership. Judgment, justice.
That's one people overlook quite often.
Yes,
yeah.
Decisiveness, integrity, dependability.
Yeah.
Boy, there's quite a few that you. How did you come up with this? Now, when you were working on your leadership skills in leading others, how did you come up with these?
Well, I didn't. I wish I could say I did. This is what the Marine Corps teaches. These are the 14 traits they require every Marine to adapt themselves to. They taught us this in boot camp, and they never let up on it. So throughout the time, whenever you're moving into a leadership position, they're evaluating based on your ability to personify these traits.
Yeah, yeah. What is the one biggest obstacle that you've seen over the years to getting people to change their behavior? I mean, what's really helped them? Is there anything that you think makes it easier for them to change?
Yeah, the biggest obstacle is that what they've done up to this point has gotten them to this point. So they've learned to rely on it. They're thinking, why change? This is why I got promoted. This is why I got the job. So why do I need to change? So you've got to give them a paradigm shift where they can actually see that there's a different place available for them, but they're going to have to adapt to that position.
A different possibility?
Different possibility, yeah.
Here's what the possibility can be if you do X.
Right, so despite the fact that this got you here, and that's awesome, don't lose it, we're going to have to add to that or you're not going to get any further.
And I like the way you said that. You have to add to it. You don't necessarily have to get rid of it. In some cases you do, but you have to get rid of bad behavior maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Things that you do that are destructive to your success.
Sure.
But certainly, you build upon your successes and you drop your weaknesses.
Right.
I like that. We're going to jump to a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk in depth with Scott on the 14 traits that make a great leader.